What does it take to make someone walk away from everything, to pack up their life, leave their job, their friends, and the city they call home, all to escape the memory of one person? And what happens when that person refuses to let you go? This isn't a story about a simple breakup. It's a story about devotion and betrayal. It's about working in secret to build a dream for someone, only to find out they were building an exit strategy with someone else. It's a story about setting boundaries and the desperate, unnerving lengths one person will go to tear them down. This is the story of a man we'll call Mark, and how a relationship that promised forever became a haunting he couldn't escape. Our story begins where so many modern romances do the workplace. It was the middle of 2023. Mark, a 34-year-old professional, focused and driven, found his routine pleasantly disrupted by a new colleague. Her name was Sarah. She was 29, vibrant, with a smile that could, as he would later learn, light up a room and leave it in darkness just as quickly. The connection was instant and undeniable. It was the easy laughter, the shared inside jokes about office politics, the way conversations would drift from project deadlines to dreams and aspirations. For Mark, it was intoxicating. He fell for her, hard and fast. Soon, they were officially dating, and for a short while, everything felt perfect. It was the kind of relationship that makes you believe in fate. But fate, as Mark would discover, has a cruel sense of humor. The first crack appeared just a few months in, a minor disagreement, the kind of silly, forgettable argument that healthy couples navigate and laugh about, later spiraled out of control. Sarah didn't want to talk it through. She wanted to end it, and she chose to do so in the most public and humiliating way possible. Mark was devastated. He was a private person, and to have his personal life implode in front of his colleagues was a nightmare. But the real pain was the loss of Sarah. He tried to carry on, to compartmentalize, but seeing her every day was a constant, agonizing reminder of what he'd lost. The empty chair in the meeting room, the shared coffee spot, now visited alone. It was all too much. Eventually, he made a drastic decision. He quit the job he was good at, the job he enjoyed, because the emotional toll was too high. He chose his sanity over his career. He found a new job, a new routine. But they lived in the same orbit, the same part of town. For months, their lives were a series of awkward chance encounters, a nod at the grocery store, a quick, stilted hello at a coffee shop. Mark kept his distance, nursing a wound that refused to heal. And then, slowly, conversations started again. A text here, a short phone call there. Despite the deep hurt she had caused, Mark's feelings for her were still there, buried under a layer of resentment and caution. He couldn't bring himself to even consider getting back together. The memory of that public humiliation was a wall between them. A few months into this tentative reconnection, Sarah finally broke down. She told him how deeply she regretted ending things over something so petty. She admitted that causing a scene at work was a terrible, immature thing to do, and that it had weighed on her conscience ever since. And here's the thing about a sincere apology. It can feel like a key unlocking a door you thought was rusted shut. Mark looked at her, saw the genuine remorse in her eyes, and believed her. He believed she had reflected, that she had grown. And because those feelings for her had never truly died, he asked a question that would change his life all over again. Do you want to give us another chance? She said yes.
Data center.
By the beginning of 2024, they were officially back together. And for a full year, it was everything he had hoped for. This wasn't just dating anymore. This was a partnership. They talked about marriage, about the future, about building a life brick by brick. For Mark, all the past hurt seemed like a distant memory, a necessary trial they had overcome to get to this point. He was ready. He decided he was going to propose. But Mark didn't want to just propose. He wanted to offer her a foundation, a future made tangible. He started working extra hours, picking up every possible shift, saving every dollar. The goal? A down payment on a house where they could start their married life. He kept it a complete secret, imagining the look on her face when he would reveal not just a ring, but the keys to their future home. He was exhausted, working himself to the bone, but he was fueled by this beautiful secret. And that's when, out of the clear blue sky, Sarah dropped a bombshell. She wanted a break. Mark was floored. A break? Why? When he pressed her for a reason, she was evasive. No clear explanation, just vague feelings of distance. It made no sense. Around the same time, Mark noticed a pattern. For weeks, Sarah had been talking nonstop about a new guy at her job, his funny stories, his interesting hobbies. Then, just as suddenly as it started, she stopped mentioning him completely. The silence was more suspicious than the chatter. Confused and deeply hurt, Mark reached out to a trusted friend, Emily, who still worked at the same company as Sarah. He explained the situation, the sudden request for a break, the strange silence about the new coworker. Emily, working in a different department, didn't know anything firsthand but promised to discreetly ask around. A few days later, Emily called back with news that made Mark's stomach drop. The story circulating in Sarah's department was that Mark had become distant and wasn't treating her well. His long hours and fatigue, the very sacrifice he was making for her, were being painted as neglect. Her coworkers had been in her ear, encouraging her to take a break, telling her she deserved better. And worse.
Performance.
They were actively trying to set her up with that same new guy, insisting they would be a much better match. Mark's secret sacrifice had been weaponized against him. He told Emily everything: the ring, the house, the surprise he had been working so hard for. Emily was stunned. 2 long, agonizing weeks passed. Then Sarah called, suggesting they meet to talk. Mark agreed, but with one condition: he needed a real explanation for the break. No more vagueness. She began with the same tired lines about how distant he'd seemed, how she felt he wasn't invested anymore. Mark calmly explained that if she had simply communicated her feelings, she would have understood, but it was too late for that. Then she finally brought him up. The new guy. "You mean David?" Mark said, using the man's name before she could. The look of pure shock on her face was all the confirmation he needed. How did you know?" she stammered. I'm not an idiot, Sarah," he replied, the hurt evident in his voice. He pointed out how she had talked about him constantly, then suddenly stopped, a classic sign of hiding something. She swore she had never cheated on him. Mark looked her dead in the eye. "Actively hunting for my replacement at the first sign of trouble. Some people would call that cheating, Sarah." At that moment, something inside him snapped. He didn't want to hear any more excuses. It didn't matter if she had second thoughts or wanted to reconcile. The trust wasn't just broken, it had been pulverized. He told her it was over, not a break, an ending. The pain of this second betrayal was 1,000 times worse than the first. The first time was impulsive and immature.
Texture.
This time was a calculated, conscious decision to seek out someone new while he was literally building their future. He couldn't stay. He couldn't be in the same city, breathing the same air. He put in for a transfer at his job. He took the money he had painstakingly saved for their house, for their future, and used it to fund his escape. He was starting over. During this process, his friend Emily reached out, full of guilt. She confessed that after she had learned about Mark's proposal plans, she had told Sarah. She said Sarah had completely broken down, sobbing when she realized the magnitude of what she had thrown away. Mark appreciated Emily's honesty, but it changed nothing. An apology born of regret for getting caught is not the same as one born of true remorse. The damage was done. Mark moved. By December of 2024, Mark was back in his hometown for the holidays. Some old friends organized a reunion party. It was inevitable, really. Sarah was there. They barely spoke. A quick, awkward "hey," but Mark saw her across the room, laughing with a group of friends. And that smile, it hit him like a punch to the gut. Like, it was the same smile that had captivated him from day one. For a fleeting second, he felt that old pull, that familiar ache. He thought to himself, how broken am I that I can still feel this way? But feelings are just feelings. The reality of her betrayal was a cold, hard anchor that kept him grounded. Later that night, a friend casually mentioned that Sarah's relationship with the new guy had fizzled out after only a few months. It was a hollow, meaningless victory. Mark's holiday break ended on January 6th, 2025. He was packed and ready to drive back to his new life, his new city. Then he got a call from a friend from home. The friend had a favor to ask, warning Mark that he wasn't going to like it. His stomach sank. It was for Sarah. She had apparently gotten a job with a relative's company in the same city where Mark now lived. She was moving there, and she needed a ride. Mark's no was instantaneous and absolute. The thought of being trapped in a car with her for hours, suffocating in the awkward silence and unspoken history, was a form of torture he had no intention of enduring. His friend pushed, saying they needed to talk. Mark shut it down. He returned to his new life, hoping that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, while cooling down from a run in a park, he heard a familiar voice say, "Here?" It was Sarah. She had found him. She tried to make small talk, but Mark cut her off. He told her flatly, "I don't want to talk to you." She pleaded with him, telling him not to be like that they needed to talk. She asked how he could still be upset after all this time, and Mark, with a weary honesty, laid it bare for her. "This isn't resentment," he told her. "The truth is, thinking about you, talking to you, even seeing you right now, it still hurts. A lot. That's why I can't do this." Her response defied all logic. "That's exactly why we need to talk." He didn't understand. He didn't have to. He just turned and walked away. She approached him twice more in the following days. Each time he refused to engage. At this point, even some of his friends who had initially sympathized with her started to see a pattern of harassment. His friend Emily, now firmly on his side, made a vague but pointed social media post about the definition of stalking. The message was clear. Things went quiet for a few weeks. Mark hoped, prayed, that she had finally gotten the message. Then came the call he never expected. It was Sarah's mother. Mark had always had a good relationship with her parents. They were kind, decent people who had treated him with respect even during the breakups. He was hesitant, but his respect for them won out. He answered, prepared to gently end the call if it became an ambush. Her mother immediately put him on speaker with her father. They began by apologizing profusely for their daughter's recent actions. They'd had no idea how aggressively she had been pursuing him until recently. They had a long, firm talk with her father confessing the conversation was one he should have been having with a teenager, not a woman about to turn 30. They told him Sarah had finally promised to leave him alone and to seek therapy to understand her destructive patterns. For Mark, it was a profound moment of relief, not just for himself, but for her. Despite all the pain, he never wished her ill. He hoped she would find happiness, and this was the first step. He thanked her parents, telling them how much he had always admired them. When he hung up the phone, he felt a finality he hadn't felt before. He could finally say with certainty that the chapter was closed. In the end, Mark's story is a powerful lesson in the importance of boundaries. He learned that you can't control another person's actions, but you can control your own. You can choose to walk away. You can choose to protect your peace. He learned that some friends don't have your best interests at heart, and that it's okay to reevaluate who you let into your inner circle. And most importantly, he learned that closure isn't something another person gives you. It's not found in a final conversation or a dramatic apology. Closure is the quiet decision to stop reopening a wound, to turn your back on the past, and to start walking the long, patient, and rewarding path toward healing on your own terms.